viewers, welcome to the news on the hour. The major stories. Anglican Bishop of the Diocese of Lagos West, the Right Reverend Dr. James Odedeji, calls on Christians to subject themselves to serious discipline in this Lenten season. Bishop of Kubwa Diocese Anglican Communion Right Reverend Duke Akamisoko urges Christians to keep hope alive as they vote on Saturday. Plus, a Methodist Archbishop and Bishop of Umuahia, Most Reverend Dr. Chibuzo Oboko, asks those using their offices to subvert the will of the people in the elections to have a rethink. The news in details. The Anglican Bishop of the Diocese of Lagos West, the Right Reverend Dr. James Odedeji, has called on Christians in this Lenten season to subject themselves to serious discipline in order to see clearer and hear from God on what to do. The bishop made the call in an interview with Acnn News' Caroline Achumbe, where he said that this season will usher all into a serious relationship with God.
Well, the Bible tells us that without fasting and prayer, not much can be recorded. So it's another season of penitence, a season to draw closer to God, a season when we are going to punish the body, subject our body into serious discipline, and we'll be able to see clearer, we'll be able to hear God more visibly, and we'll be able to ask God those things that are necessary for our body and our soul. So the season will usher us into a serious relationship with our Maker.
As Nigerians go to the poll again for the governorship and state assembly elections, Nigerians, especially Christians, have been urged not to give up, but to keep hope alive in line with the mandate of the scripture. The Bishop of Kubwa Diocese Anglican Communion, Right Reverend Duke Akamisoko, made this known in an interview with Acnn News crew in Abuja, and according to him, Christians must be hopeful and courageous. He urged all to go out en masse to vote, as God's will at the end shall prevail.
We can't give up. Christians don't give up. The mandate of the scripture is that Christians must be hopeful, must be determined, must be courageous. We must not give up on life. God have his plans. People have their plan. They must go out and vote. As they vote, God will prevail at the end.
Also, an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Abuja, Vicar of the Anglican Church of the Resurrection, Dubois, the Venerable Olusegun Akiola, called on Nigerians to act accordingly and make their votes count, and urged all to continue to depend and focus on God, who knows how to work all things in favor of his people. He was speaking in an interview with Acnn News crew in Abuja.
As a pastor, as a Christian, all I can really say is that we can't give up hope. We can't give up on our prayers. We always turn to God for peace. We always turn to God to help us, to encourage us in times like this. Because for INEC to just go ahead and make an announcement where there's so many questions unanswered seems unfair. But we still put our hope and trust in God that they will be able to make amends as they prepare for the governorship elections. Even though the question will still be there that if the presidential wasn't really reliable, then how much more the governorship, you know. But our prayer and our focus is still on God. We are not so concerned about what happens out there, because when we put our hope and trust in God, God knows how to work all things in the favor of his people. So it's just our prayer that people will still turn up, will still do and act accordingly to exercise their franchise, to go out and make their votes count. But most of all, let us keep praying and looking up to God for help and for peace in a time like this.
Meanwhile, the Most Reverend Dr. Chibuzo Oboko, a Methodist Archbishop and Bishop of Umuahia, has warned all those planning to use their offices to subvert the will of the people in this election to have a rethink. He gave this warning in an interview with Acnn News crew, where he noted that the voice of the people is the voice of God. Hence, the need for all to be careful and do their job with fear of God.
If you are a professor, you are a student, you are a youth corper, you are a civil servant, and you stay there to subdue the will of the people because you have been brought over to manipulate election to favor one group or the other, you are putting yourself in a deep trouble. But the fact is that if is the voice of God, and they now elected somebody, and then you became a tool and a vessel in denying the person they elected to take over the office, then you are in damn trouble. I want to warn everybody. You can think you can get away with it, you cannot get away with it. Even the politician who did that can never get away with it. The youth corpers, they can never get away with it. Because when you get the wrong people in top, in leadership, then you will also have wrong policies. And it will affect you. If it does not affect you, it will affect your generation. It is good for you to know that when a system is bad, those who benefit from that system doesn't see it as being bad. But when the consequences of the system prevails upon, it consumes everybody. So I want to warn politicians, I want to warn the RECs, I want to warn the EOs, I want to warn all the officers that have been given the opportunity to do their job, to do it fearing God, and to do it knowing that there will be a day of answering.
Still on governorship election, the Christian Association of Nigeria and the Kaduna State Peace and Mediation Working Committee have called on voters to avoid voter apathy and come out en masse to vote their preferred candidates during the governorship and State House of Assembly elections. The chairman of the state chapter of the association, Reverend Joseph Hayab, gave this advice in a statement saying can demand that the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC be neutral, just and truly independent to redeem its tainted image resulting from concerns of lack of transparency in the just concluded presidential poll. The association said INEC must ensure compliance with provision of the Electoral Act as amended, appealing to men and women of Nigeria's security agencies to demonstrate true patriotism by ensuring citizens are free to exercise their civic rights without fear or favor. Hayab remarked that while CAN advises the citizenry to resist the temptation of incitement as there can only be one winner in the end, said aspirants need to uphold the spirit of sportsmanship to build a state they will be proud of before, during and after the elections. Meanwhile, Kaduna State Peace and Mediation Working Committee, through its chairman, Reverend Bitrus Dangwa, urged residents to avoid voter apathy and come out en masse to cast their votes during the exercise in the state. And now church leaders in Abia State decried the suspension of the state's resident electoral commissioner, Professor Ike Uzochukwu, during the February 25th presidential and National Assembly elections. The chairman of the State Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, Apostle Emmanuel Agomo, who read out the church leader's statement to journalists at a press briefing in Umuahia, said that as Saturday's governorship and state assembly elections approach, saboteurs are cautioned to desist from acts that could mar the electoral process. He advised the acting REC, who is the administrative secretary of the INEC in the state, to be careful not to allow himself be exploited or manipulated by any group or group to subvert the will of the people by tampering with votes during and after Saturday's election in the state. Church leaders in Abia State therefore tasked INEC to correct all mistakes of February elections and strictly conduct the elections in accordance with the law and guidelines, among others. Viewers, you've been watching the news on the hour, and still to come, King Charles of the United Kingdom approves the appointment of Reverend Canon Professor Sarah Foote as Dean of Christ Church, Oxford. The story and others will come your way after this big break. Please stay tuned.
2023 Mothering Sunday is here. It is a day set apart to celebrate our beloved mothers. Daddies, uncles, sisters, you will agree with me that mothers are so special and deserve to be celebrated. Show your mum, sisters, aunties, and female loved ones some love by sending a beautiful shout-out message with pictures on Acnn TV on this year's Mothering Sunday for a little token of 10,000 Naira only. 2023 Mothering Sunday is slated for 19th March 2023. Pay into account name to Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion ACNN account 101 6868 363 Zenith Bank. Messages should be sent to email inquiries@acnntv.com and WhatsApp phone number on 0703 2656 544.
Hello viewers, welcome to this week's episode on Health Watch on Advent Cable Network Nigeria. I am Angela Emeka Epibo.
What we need as humans is to have a good spiritual life. It's more important than having an abundance of possessions without a healthy spirit.
We have issues that relate to sexual affairs. There is something called consent. If a person says no, that means she or he hasn't given their consent.
My mother delivered children on her own. A baby that is too big, how do you want it to come out without having issues?
Your faith does not negate you going for a medical check or engaging in a medical therapy. It doesn't.
The patient has his own rights, and this right has to do with the right patient, the right drug, the right dose, the right duration. You understand? Even the right time in how it is given.
You're welcome back and thanks for being there. For more on our top stories, please visit our website at acnntv.com or our social media platforms on facebook.com or youtube.com/acnntv. To be up to date with our news and other programs, download the Avo TV app from Google Play Store, and you can also advertise your goods and services on Acnn TV. Away from Nigeria now, moving on. The Archbishop of the Church of Uganda Anglican Communion, the Most Reverend Dr. Stephen Kazimba, is in the Mbale Diocese in the eastern region of Uganda for a 4-day pastoral visit and has visited the Uganda Christian University main campus in Mukono as the Chancellor, where he held meetings with various stakeholders and visited a number of projects. During his visit, exciting developments were announced by the Vice-Chancellor, Associate Professor Aaron Mukshenyezi, announced the graduation of the university's pioneer undergraduate students of medicine and dentistry come July this year. He informed the Chancellor about the appointment of the 2 of the university's associate professors to higher positions of responsibility in the region. Reverend Canon Associate Professor Olivia Banja was appointed Vice-Chancellor of Ndeji University, while Associate Professor Martin Langwa was appointed Director General at the Eastern and Southern Africa Management Institute in Arusha, Tanzania. The Chancellor expressed gratitude to the Vice-Chancellor and the university leadership for the impressive developments made and encouraged them to continue in their efforts to make the university a center of excellence in the heart of Africa. At the course of his pastoral visit, Archbishop Kazimba is expected to visit Uganda Christian University Mbale College and proceed with his pastoral visit in Mbale Diocese, where he will perform other functions. An American missionary pilot and 2 other men who were jailed in Mozambique for more than 4 months on suspicion of supporting insurgents in the war-torn nation have been released from prison. Ran Kohe and 2 South Africans, Du Plessis and Eric Dry, left prison, and that's according to the US-based Ministry Mission Aviation Fellowship. According to reports, Coher is said to be doing well following his release and has spoken multiple times with his wife, Annabelle, and his 2 sons since his release. All 3 men are required to remain in Mozambique, and the case is still ongoing. Coher's release appeared to be an answer to prayer after his wife, Annabelle, said last week that while she was unsure how the legal process would play out, she has been praying for God to use Coher's time in prison for his glory and bring him safely back to his family. And now the King has approved the appointment of Reverend Canon Professor Sarah Foote as Dean of Christ Church, Oxford. Professor Foote is the first woman to be chosen for the role of Christ Church's almost 500-year-long history. Professor Foote is the Regius Professor of Ecclesiastical History at Oxford University and a priest serving as a residential canon at Christ Church. Her teaching and research have focused on women in religion, medieval monasticism, and the early history of the English Church. She is currently working on the study of the life and work of the Venerable Bede. In addition to her faculty position, Professor Foote has been serving since 2021 as Censor Theologian of Christ Church. The holder of this role deputizes in the Dean's absence. Since the deanship became vacant, she has effectively fulfilled the role of acting head of house. She will take up her appointment as Dean in July 2023. You've been watching the news and the hour. Before we go, viewers, let's give you a recap of our major stories. Anglican Bishop of the Diocese of Lagos West, the Right Reverend Dr. James Odedeji, calls on Christians to subject themselves to serious discipline in this Lenten season. Bishop of Kuba Diocese Anglican Communion, Right Reverend Duka Kamisoko, urges Christians to keep hope alive as they vote on Saturday. Plus, a Methodist Archbishop and Bishop of Umuahia, Most Reverend Dr. Chibuzo Obiko, asks those using their offices to subvert the will of the people in the elections to have a rethink. So that's where we draw the curtain for this edition of the news, and I want to thank you profusely for watching. I am Elizabeth Frank. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Now streaming, now analyzing, now assessing, now discussing, now sharing your thoughts on everything and every issue that affects you.